Thank you so much. I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight. We really appreciate that and the chance to tell our story. And before we get started, was that not a powerful story? So Alliance 180 is a suicide prevention program that has been started for fellow veterans, first responders, and frontline healthcare workers. And along with my co-founder, Melody Squire, who's also here tonight, I just want to give you a brief overview of what we do. What we have discovered in working with over 1,000 fellow veterans is that post-traumatic stress is not really a mental health issue. It's physiological. And what I mean by that is any time a normal human being experiences trauma, whether it's war, sexual assault, on-the-job shooting, or a horrific accident, what actually can happen to that person is like an emotional circuit breaker pops in their nervous system. And it does that just like if lightning hits your house and the lights go out. Well, it was supposed to do that. It's a self-protection mechanism, but it leaves that individual on emergency generator. And after a while, that's not enough to live on, and people eventually take their life. So running this program, it includes horses, but the whole sole purpose is to trigger a re-regulation of the individual's autonomic nervous system, bringing it back into rhythm, and it's as if the lights come back on for them. Now, we've done this over 1,000 times, but tonight it's my honor to introduce Troy Huggard, who, as a matter of fact, is our first graduate of 1,000, and he went through the program in 2012. So with that, I'd like to say, Troy, thank you for coming and how courageous you are for stepping forward. Thank you.
Well, Bob said that I'm Troy. Nice to meet y'all. Tell you a little bit about myself. I didn't come from the greatest upbringing, but not many. Some of us do, some of us don't, and that's one thing or another. But I knew growing up that I wanted to be in the military. I didn't know which part of the military, but I had a grandfather that was high up officer in the Air Force, uncles, Marines, and Navy, so I knew that that's what I needed. Then I made that decision and left home, 17, joined the Navy. I literally tiptoed out of the house one day, one morning, and left. And the Navy was the greatest thing to ever happen to me. I know a lot of people are like, the military, but it was perfect. I woke up every morning knowing exactly what needed to be done throughout that day till I went to bed that night. Everything is there's no unknowns. And it was great. Everything is carved in nice little squares, and it just makes for an ease. In 1993, I suffered my first traumatic brain injury, and took me about a year to get back to what I would consider normal, and stayed in the military. I lived over in La Maddalena, Italy, pretty much my whole deployment, and beautiful, beautiful place if you ever get to go visit. And in 1999, I unfortunately suffered my second traumatic brain injury. And at that point in time, the Navy was like, yeah, you're done. Appreciate it, and peace out. And unfortunately, that's kind of like how it is. It's just like, 1 minute you're in the military, now go home. I got it, I got out. I landed a really good job right away, so I think everything's okay. I don't realize that I'm kind of wired differently now, and I thought that I had friends around me, but really it was just people kind of living on the neat things that I had. I mean, I worked for Comcast, so I had free cable, internet, got all the fights. Everybody come to my house, drink my beer, yeah. But it turned out, though, when I would have my downtimes, where were those people? There was nobody. And I realized that I didn't have anybody where I was living at the time, so I decided to move home to Florida. And when I got home to Florida, talk about moving out of the frying pan and into the fryer. I met someone who I thought was going to be the right someone, and it wasn't. And then things really started to spiral out of control for me. It got to the point I woke up one morning and I decided today's the day when I kill myself. And I actually kept a Glock on my nightstand, so I just picked it up. And as I swung my legs out over the bed, I could see my face in the mirror. And I was all unshaven, hair was all messed up. So I said, you know what? I'm going to do this right. I'm going to go get my hair cut at the barber shop. I'm going to come home, put on my dress uniform, and just straight up a few good men this, and just do it that way. And while I was at the barber shop, there was a person getting their hair cut, and the barber talking about this infantile, like this program. It's horses and veterans. It hasn't started yet. It's in upstate New York. It's called this. And so I ran home without even getting a haircut and Googled it. And it just basically was like, site under construction, call this number. Like, okay. But, in a couple things that I didn't say is, in the time up until I made that phone call, I had lost my mother in 2007 to suicide. And then I lost a dear friend who was a Marine a couple months before I decided to suicide. And you have to understand that it made sense to me to do that, because if I do it, I don't hurt anymore. I don't have, God, it's so dark when you don't feel good. And so I called the number, and Bob, who you met a little while ago, answered the phone and said, hey, listen, he asked me the Bob questions, and said, hey, listen, give me 15 minutes, don't do anything, and I'll call you right back. So the only thing I have in my life right now is my word. So I gave it to him. And that's all he was getting. And he called me back and said that he purchased me a ticket to fly me from Orlando to New York. I don't know these people. On their dime. And they were going to take care of me. Like, what are you talking about? I've tried everything the VA gives out. And of course, listen, it's not on their dime a lot, but I don't want to knock it, but it's not a lot. And that's, one amazing thing is it wasn't on my dime, so it made it a whole lot easier for me to say, I'm on my way. I'm willing to try this, I told you I went to the VA. I was diagnosed with PTSD. I also been diagnosed with ADD, ADHD. And I always say this is a little joke because it's a new diagnosis of LMNOP. So, but don't get that last one. It's pretty tough. This is what I deal with. And I come up to this program. I met, Melody was there, and there was, I have to tell you about this woman. Her name is Janelle. She was there as well. So these wonderful people are there, and they're making a fuss over me. They don't know me. And they provide me this program with this horse, and it's not petting, touchy-feely, or whatever, but they provided me with an experience that's unlike anything you could imagine. And everybody sees horses. You all have. But horses actually have a language, and you can talk to them. And this isn't a diagnosis, this is true stuff. And when you're taught some things during the day of what's going to happen, and then when you're actually going through the experience, like the whole thing is when I left the military, I couldn't trust anybody. Why trust anybody, It wasn't there, and there was just no trust, no emotion, no nothing. And now I'm with this ginormous thoroughbred horse in a round pen, and we're supposed to trust each other and get out. Yeah, it happens. And, but, the horse starts doing what he's supposed to do, and the stuff that Melody taught you, you start to see. And then you can respond, and the horse responds, and you're like, what? And then it happens again, and you're like, what? And it's happening, and then when it's time for like the trust, that connection to happen, and it happens. It's the best way I explain it is all the armor plates you wear in the military. You keep those on when you feel the way I felt, even if they're not on. But then all of a sudden I walk out of this round pen with this huge horse that just trusted me. And it's like all these armor plates just fell off and it hit the sand. And it was like I could take a deep breath. I could breathe I could always breathe, but not like this before. And then just, things got different. I went back down to Florida where it wasn't so great. But then all of a sudden people are calling me up like, hey, you need some work? Want to come do some work? And I became like, yeah, sure. And I'm running around because things are great now and I feel awesome. So how do I share this? What do I do? Oh my God. I show up on Bob's doorstep January in a t-shirt and shorts from Florida. How can I help? What can I do? How can I be a part of this? Because it's not fair that I feel this good and so many of my brothers and sisters don't. you can't imagine just how dark things can really get. And then, like Bob said, trauma happens just like that. You can be in that ring for 2-3 minutes, just like that. And it's just that switch. And since then, 2012, 2013, you remember I told you about that one lady, Janelle, that was part of the group. Her last name is Huggard now. I've graduated with honors from culinary school. My wife and I, before my wife, practically homeless. I'm with my wife now. We have a beautiful home, land, pets. My life has become so grand. I got great friends, the best neighbors in the world. My life has become so whole, all because I found this program and called that number. That's all I did. And my life got saved. And the only reason why I'm here telling you this tonight is because they saved my life. They gave me my life back, and they gave it back so unbelievably that it's so crazy, because I don't ever remember wanting to do the things that I do now, like, going out and being with my wife or doing fancy things. I was just such a homebody, and now I have a life. And just want to let you guys know that Alliance 180 is out there, and veterans, first responder, firemen, it's the most awesome program, obviously, that I could speak of. But I know that there's 1,000+ other veterans that went behind me that could come up here and would probably tell you the same thing I am verbatim. Man or woman, no matter the trauma. Thank you, Bob, Melody, and Janelle for saving my life. I love you.
It's longer on paper. My name is Ellis Paul, and I'm honored to be here. I got to spend about an hour and a half listening to the story that Troy told you in 10 minutes, and we were laughing and crying and laughing and crying, and I don't know how the hell I'm going to get through this song. Thanks. I was just a Navy kid. That's what my family did. I was 18, packing up for boot camp in Desert Storm. Nobody could have warned me about all the trouble I'd see, taking fire on the Arabian Sea with no place to dock, a coffin for a locker, taking shots from stern to keel, bullets piercing American steel. It got dark, it got dark. Back home they told me I had PTSD. They used the alphabet when describing me. I said, goodbye world, I'm gonna set myself free. And I put a gun right up to my mouth. My whole world was headed south. Oh, it got dark. It got dark. And I said to myself, are you gonna do this tonight? Go get a haircut, go get your navy whites, officer and gentleman style. Set the scene right. So I stumbled down to the barber shop. I felt like I was dream walking. I overheard two strangers talking. One of them said, what could a horse do? What could a horse undo? How's a pony gonna carry me through something every psychologist has failed to do? What could a horse do? What could a horse do? So I looked him up, called up Alliance on the phone. A man named Bob, he made me feel less alone. I said, I've looked everywhere. I have flipped every stone. I feel like I've lost everything. And he sounded like he had wings. He said, we're gonna fly you up to Saratoga Springs. What could a horse do? What could a horse undo? Something every single psychologist failed to do. What could a horse do? What could a horse do? So I stood inside this little round pen. They let a 1,500-pound horse ride in. His name was Whiskey. More of a warrior than I'd ever been, but he was scared, and I was holding him tight. There was no room for the trouble in our life. And in that ring, with Whiskey and me, our hearts, they beat in some kind of synchronicity, and I trusted him. And he came to trust me. We were two warriors out on the man, starting all over again, building trust like two old friends. And there was light. There was light. What could a horse do? What could a horse undo? How's a pony gonna carry me through something every psychologist had failed to do? What could a horse do? What could a horse do? What could a horse do?